friends.
Welcome back.
It's time for another episode, a movie episode, a science fiction movie episode. And that movie is Soldier,
A classic.
a classic. I was going to look up. Okay.
You have your phone right there. It's not like the cat was laying on it.
Pippin was lying on it. I was going to look up the year it was released because for some reason I just blanked. 1998. It was released in 1998.
I remember 1998.
I'm glad for you. I didn't see this in theaters. This is exactly the kind of movie Dad would have taken us to see.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
the emotional journey of a hardened soldier
Yeah.
finding his heart and a center of a community. Yep.
Yeah.
That's his
yeah.
kind of movie.
It was exactly. It was a very good mashup of the hardened battle Rambo character, which he loved, and Notting Hill, which he loved with equal amounts of fervor.
Probably more.
Yeah, so it was a good, like, if you squish those two together, you took Rambo and Notting Hill and you went and squish them together, I think you'd get Soldier. More of what squeezed out the edges is Rambo, but Notting Hill's heart is in there, if you get where I'm going with this.
Right. They were trying to make an emotional journey that, from a marketing branding perspective, would be palatable to Rambo fans.
Yeah, it only has 15% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Is that the fan score or the critic score?
The audience score is 44%.
Okay.
The tomato meter, which is the critic one, is 15%.
Well, I've noticed a trend of movies
That we tend to like. You know what we like about
have
this
a
movie?
really low rating.
Yeah, you know what we liked about this movie, and you mentioned it several times when we were watching it, is this movie is extremely linear. It's
internally consistent.
Yeah.
It's a coherent story.
right.
The characters all act like their characters.
Yeah.
They don't force the characters to do things for the sake of achieving some plot beat
Right.
that's just externally forced onto the situation.
Yeah, we're not trying for a complex story. We're not trying for world-changing commentary. We're just telling a story. It reminds me of Real Steel. And I like Real
Right.
Steel for the same reason, which is it's about a dad learning how to be a dad to his son with the backdrop of robot boxing.
Right.
This is about a guy learning how to be
A traumatized guy.
learning how to be a person in a community with the backdrop of a futuristic sci-fi trash planet.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially what this movie is about. Is we start out in a nursery, and so these soldiers are taken and trained from birth.
They're selected at birth and
Yeah.
screened through years of grueling training
Yeah,
and
and
testing.
we don't meet out this exposition. We dump it all at the very beginning. We start with the baby. We go to them being forced to watch as dogs kill a wild boar. Which when I honestly didn't remember this scene. And when they first brought the cage out with the dog in it, I was like, oh my God, are we about to watch a dog get killed? Is that what's about to happen? Oh my God. And I don't know why, but with the backdrop of that, I felt relieved knowing they were just going to kill a pig. I was like, oh, phew, thank God. They're just going to kill this pig. I was like, if I have to watch somebody walk in there and shoot puppies just to desensitize these children, I don't know if I can make it through this movie.
Although, what about when they shoot the slow kid in the group?
Yeah, well, that's later. That's so yes. And then we get to they're a little bit older and they're in school, and then we get older and they're doing physical training, and all of it in the background is like a voice that's like the soldiers is happiest when he's obeying orders.
War is a soldier's friend.
Yeah, war is a soldier's friend, just like indoctrination,
Propaganda.
propaganda. And we get all the way up to them getting their name, their blood type, and their soldier number designation tattooed on their cheek. Yeah, and we even get to see when they're running, there's a slow kid, and they just drive up, pull in front of this kid, and shoot him.
And we hear the gunshot from a distance.
Yeah.
While watching Todd lead the pack.
You'd think. If you had invested that much into this child already, I mean, somebody's got to be at the back carrying supplies.
Somebody's got to stay at the base and organize the medical kits.
Yeah.
And stay on the comm.
Right. Why wouldn't you just cut this kid off and drop him in like logistics?
Right.
Yeah, you are the
right. Probably the worst performing member of this group you drop him in a group of like regular soldiers.
Yeah.
Or even just military, like civilian military support. They're going to be the leader.
Right.
In that group.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's not that kind of movie.
That's not the kind of message.
It's not the kind of movie.
The ambiance that we're trying to build here.
Yeah, we even go all the way up to they're firing at targets, and they're shooting obvious military targets. And then a military target goes behind a woman holding a baby, and our main character, Todd.
Yeah, and holds her as a human shield.
Yeah.
And he hesitates for about 2 seconds and then blasts right through her.
Yeah. To get to the target behind her.
Yep.
And you're like, oh, okay, so that's the kind of military training we're going for. Which, you know what this movie didn't have? Text at the beginning or a voiceover.
Right. There was no expository voiceover.
Nope. We don't get any additional information about
There was
the
a
world
voiceover, but it was
all.
part of the story.
Right.
As the propaganda.
We don't know why we need this kind of hardened military force. We know the year at the very beginning, but we don't get another year code until later. We get
and Todd doesn't explain anything either.
Yeah, because Todd doesn't have any fucking lines, even though he's in 85% of the movie. Yeah, he literally, Kurt Russell is in 85% of this movie and speaks fewer than 100 words. He had to do...
And he pulls it off.
All of his acting was just... And he couldn't make any real facial expressions.
Right.
It was eyes only. He had to convey absolutely everything with just his eyes. And I think he does a pretty good job.
I was impressed.
Yeah, we watched this movie twice. Because Matt missed the beginning the first time around. So we went back and watched it.
I missed like the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But
and
this is a very rewatchable movie.
And I feel like every time you watch it, you get more nuance from what he's trying to convey.
But before we go too far.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hi, I'm Rachel.
And I'm Matt.
Welcome to the Strange and Beautiful Book Club. See, you got to catch me because I get excited and then I just go. So this movie is a sidequel, not a sequel, but a movie adjacent.
It's an extended universe.
Yeah, supposedly of Blade Runner. And I guess it's based on
the same guy who wrote the screenplay for Blade Runner wrote the screenplay for this. That's what you told me.
Yes.
Did you lie to me?
I didn't lie to you, but I just want to check that real quick. Yes, Soldier was written by David Peoples, who co-wrote the script for the 1982 film Blade Runner. And he considers this to be like a spin-off or a sequel or like a spiritual successor. And it's based off a deleted scene from the Blade Runner movie where they would have had some replicants abandoned on a trash planet. And so they expanded on that and made it into the Soldier movie. And so Todd is human. He's not a replicant, but it's implied that the soldiers that are to replace Todd and his crew are replicants.
Right. They specifically say that they're genetically engineered.
Yeah.
To be better soldiers.
Right. Better physically.
Right.
Yeah. Because it's really hard to replace. By the time we pick up with Todd, he's like 42. So he
has 40 years of training and like probably 25 years of actual military experience.
Yeah, and this movie has Jason Isaacs in it. Jason Isaacs is kind of our bad guy, I guess. One of the bad guys. He's our most overt bad guy.
Yeah.
With an American accent, which you almost never see him with. And it's so weird. Every time he opens his mouth, I'm like, huh.
The other very, I'm trying to find the word.
Unlikely. Jarring.
Jarring.
Yeah.
Probably the most jarring part about this movie is seeing Gary Busey in a role where he's just not pulling like a crazy
where
face
he's not Gary
all
Busey
the time.
Yeah, where he's
Right.
not Gary Busey.
Gary Busey around 2000, early 2000s, must have had some kind of traumatic experience because he just goes wild at some point. And everything that he's in, he just has this like crazy wild-eyed look.
It could have been Jumping the Shark.
And he just screams like all of his lines. But here, he's actually like the rational military leader, which is not a role that, even 5 years later, he would be cast in.
Yeah. Sean Pertwee is also in this, and he was in Equilibrium. He was father in Equilibrium. And dyeing his hair blonde was such a questionable choice.
Right. And Connie Nielsen.
Yeah.
They dyed her hair too. And it's like, why did you like make these people blonde?
Right.
When they have...
She's okay. I mean,
right.
It's fine. But Sean isn't blonde. And I mean, no other part of him is blonde. And it looks like Sun-In. Do you remember Sun-In?
You told me about it.
Yeah.
I've never had any direct
It was
experience.
a thing in the 90s that you could buy that you put in your hair, and it facilitated photo bleaching. So it was like you could get beach hair.
I have naturally photo bleaching hair, so I never needed it.
Right. Well, it turned your hair orange. Okay.
My hair's already orange.
It turned your
Go
hair
ahead.
orange in your hair isn't supposed to be orange kind of way.
that
Yes.
shade of orange.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
What is that? And that's what it looks like. But it generally didn't get your roots because it was literally just a spray you spritzed on your hair. And so you would get these like orange tips, which in the 90s was actually kind of
frosted
in.
tips?
Yeah, frosted tips. But yeah, he looks like someone did a bad sun-in job and then left his eyes dark, like left his eyelashes dark. And so he ends up looking like he's wearing guy liner, which I have no problem with guy liner. I'm a fan of guy liner, but it's every time you see him, you're like,
It stands out.
is he wearing eyeliner? No, he's not wearing eyeliner. But is he wearing eyeliner? No, he's not wearing eyeliner. And they have to reprocess the lack of eyeliner every time you see him. And
Well,
then
you
he
do.
speaks. Yeah. Yeah. And then he speaks and you're expecting a British accent and it's not. But he still has he has a very odd voice.
Right. He has a pretty distinct accent.
Yeah, he has a distinct voice, and I'm
Yeah.
expecting that voice to have a British accent, and it doesn't. But I think overall, everybody does a pretty good job in this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a ton of characters. We have Todd, and then we have Gary Busey's character, and then there's two other...
Church.
Yeah, and then we have two other people who are kind of the grunts, a woman and a man. And really, the woman's only purpose is so she can look at the new soldiers and go, well, they're pretty. Okay. That's pretty much it. I mean, these two characters could have been combined easily. But that's okay. And then we have Colonel Meekum, who is Jason Isaacs' character. And he's the one who is, declaring that the older soldiers are now obsolete because we have the new, improved, specially designed, built and grown specifically for this purpose.
They're bigger, more muscly, stronger, faster.
They're harder, better, faster, stronger.
That's their selling line.
Right. Because they show up and I love how Gary Busey is immediately like, well, let's put him to the test. Because poor Todd, he just went through like 8 wars.
Right.
We go through, we culminate the opening scene with seeing Todd in all of these different wars.
Right.
And
montage.
And then the caption at the bottom just reads, between wars. Like there's going to be another one. It just hasn't started yet.
Right.
And we just ended the last one. So they're all sitting on their bunks, which is one of my favorite scenes because you think it's just Todd. And then it turns slightly and you realize that everyone is sitting in the same exact position, in the same exact posture on their bunks. And so it makes them all look completely lined up. Because even though they're not machines, they've been trained to be like machines. And so they get them all up, they line them in the hangar, and they're like, okay, here's the old ones, here's the new ones. Let's have them duke it out.
Yeah, let's get some comparison.
Yeah, let's see what happens. And so they do a race.
In this very artificial setting.
Right. So they do a race. They do a 15-mile race, which this is our first moment where we see Kurt Russell start to do the eye acting because he's looking at the other guys like, the fuck is this shit? But it's literally just like, just eye
the
lasers.
Same.
Just the same
facial expression.
And then they gave him that scar over one eye that makes his one eye look droopy.
Yeah.
And it ends up making him look like puppy dog, like a basset hound, like because his eyes look a little bit like sad. And so he looks sad and pissed off, but without actually moving anything, which is amazing. And so he does this thing. He runs for 15 miles. That's how far they have him run.
Yeah.
So the other guy starts out 20 minutes behind. Kane starts out 20 minutes behind, but he ends up catching up with Todd.
Right. Okay. So for context, he says 15 miles, you have 60 minutes. That's 4-minute miles for 15 miles.
Yeah.
And I think the world record for running 1 mile is like 3 minutes, 50 something seconds. Something like that.
Just 1 mile though.
And so this guy is so like physically enhanced that he can run near world record mile times for 15 miles consecutively and then still be strong at the end.
Yep. And Kane is played by...
I don't recognize the actor.
You don't? I recognized him, but I couldn't tell you what he was from. By Jason Scott Lee. I guess he played in Mulan, the new Mulan. He also played in the live action. He was Mowgli in the live action Jungle Book, the one from the 90s.
The old live action Jungle
The
Book.
old live action one.
Gotcha.
Oh, he was in Back to the Future Part 2.
As a
He
kid?
was in Dragon, the Bruce Lee story as Bruce Lee in 1993.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And he's Mowgli in the Jungle Book. So by the time he gets to this, he's been in a fair amount of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's in Soldier. He's a voice in Lilo and Stitch. Yeah. He's one of those actors that's been in a bunch. And every time I see him, I'm like, oh, that guy. But then I have to look him up to remember what he's been in.
Gotcha.
But he's Kane. And so Kane ends up catching up with him, obviously, because he's the best. And so he beats him back. And then Todd shows up and they're both just standing there. And he's like, okay, but like, are they tired? You know, what's the cost? Like,
You know, Todd has been trained. He ran the pace that he's been trained to run.
Right.
He could have run it faster, but your guy probably just wore himself out.
yeah. And so he has Todd climb this chain, and Todd climbs the chain.
When are... Okay.
Okay. I'm ready.
This is probably a theme that's common in the military, and you see it like in software development when you're taking metrics on performance for people, whatever. The metrics that you use to measure people's performance in a lot of different places doesn't actually line up with what they need to be able to do well to do the job.
Right.
It's like the interviewing process, and you do like coding problems. You never actually write algorithms on the fly for a job, like for day-to-day work, unless you're doing really low-level stuff. People have invested hundreds of hours into writing libraries of code to be reused. So I don't need to develop some cryptography algorithm. I use the like vetted cryptography library.
Yeah.
But they test you on algorithms in interviews because it's something that's easy to measure, even if it's inaccurate. Climbing chains and doing melee combat on chains is something that's easy to measure the success outcome, because you can see people fall if they're not doing well. But that doesn't accurately reproduce the conditions that a soldier would be fighting in.
Right. Which is why Todd does not end up victorious.
Metric.
Yeah, which is why Todd doesn't end up the winner in this situation.
Todd isn't good at the actual soldier stuff.
Yeah.
But in this particular series of scenes, they're not actually measuring soldier activities.
Right. Like when they have them shoot the orb and it's counting up for the accuracy. Like the numbers are scrolling up and they're like 99% accurate. It should just start at 100 and drop. It shouldn't count up. I don't know. I just feel like that's not the way the accuracy measurement should work. But anyway, the point of this is...
Well, okay, so I think having this as a plot device in the movie is not contrived.
Okay.
It's a commentary on just the state of the reality that we live in, that in these kind of bureaucracy heavy environments, you end up measuring the wrong things.
It's like a bunch of old dudes on a school board who have never even been in a classroom teaching children, making decisions about what happens in the classroom.
Or a bunch of old white dudes deciding about women's healthcare.
Exactly. They have no real life experience. The only one who does it all is Gary Busey's character.
Right.
And even he is so far removed from it that he's like, well, okay, this was a good test. That's fine.
They beat my guys. On this totally contrived combat situation that is not reflective of actual combat.
Right, because Todd climbs the chain. And then, of course, Kane climbs the chain without even having to touch it with his feet. He just badasses his way up there. 2 hands and a dick. That's how he gets to the top. And so it's prehensile, you know.
You think that's genetically enhanced?
Why wouldn't it be?
Well, in the case of Todd, when he meets Sandra, Connie Nielsen's character.
I love how you knew her name. I don't even know how you knew her actress name. I'm very impressed.
I really like Gladiator. Okay.
Oh, that's right. That's what she's in. Okay, Sandra. Yes. I really like Gladiator. Okay.
He meets Sandra, and it's obvious he's never seen a woman up close before.
Yeah.
like in a non-combat situation. So I was thinking, have they been giving the soldiers like drugs or something to suppress sex drive? Or
No, they leave them frustrated. That's how they get them to fight everything. Why do you think he's willing to shoot literally anything? It's just like, I'm so, so fucking frustrated. Yeah, I don't know. You'd think actually they would engineer it the opposite so that because that becomes a weak point. In fact, at one point, Kane hits one of the other soldiers in the nuts. He reaches back and slaps him between the legs when they're on the rope.
oh yeah. Yep, effective combat technique.
Yeah, I mean, it worked. It worked. Todd does manage to get up behind Kane, and I guess the scene where he scratches his eye was one of the ones that got them the NC-17 rating, so they had to tone it down.
Oh.
So initially,
it was more gory?
It was more gory. Because this movie when they first screened it, they were like, NC-17. And they were like, well, shit. And so they had to scale back the gore to get the rating it got.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can see that. There's very few graphic scenes in this movie, which I like. There's just people acting through the whole tone of the movie.
Right.
And then every once in a while you get a just visual.
Yeah. It makes it more impactful at the end when we get to the like slaughterhouse at the end.
Yes.
When Todd is just like, he's taking out all of his pent up sexual frustration on all of these evil soldiers.
Decades of sexual frustration.
Yeah. But Todd he does end up getting knocked off the rope and he lands on another soldier. And we kind of do the pan up, the 90s pan up to let you know they were dying. That's how you knew.
It's a point of view of their spirit leaving the body.
Yeah, if you were ever in the 90s and there was a camera in your face and it started just slowly backing away, sorry, dude, you dead. That's how you knew. And so they're like, well, we don't want to do any paperwork. Let's write this up as a training accident and we'll just
quietly dispose of the bodies.
Of the bodies and no one needs to know. So they put him in a trash like disposal thing. Does that have atmosphere in it?
Well, apparently it does. But does it make sense that it does?
No.
Not really.
Not really. But that's okay. It's enough that he's able to get to where he's going. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Maybe there was enough atmosphere since he was the only thing breathing in there. You know, he was able to. Maybe it's
right. There may not be any like environmental systems running in those storage rooms. But since he's the only living thing in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like an elevator. I saw someone ran the numbers and like in a single human in an elevator, an airtight elevator has like 14 hours of air.
Right. Yeah. So we'll just go with that. And there's enough heat to keep the electronics working. So that's enough. He's a soldier. He can handle it. And I guess there are quite a few Easter eggs in the trash. There's a Blade Runner spinner. There's parts of like, if you look at the numbers on some of the ship parts, they're like from famous naval vessels or whatever. But this feels like that scene in episode 1 where if you paused it, you could find the Millennium Falcon flying.
Yes.
I didn't do that. If you feel so compelled to go back and watch this scene, there's supposedly Easter eggs in here. I did see like a NASA landing capsule. That's about as much as it's fine. There's a lot going on here. He ends up getting dumped. Somehow he survives the fall.
Right. From like 200, 300 feet up.
You know what I was thinking? Probably the script was like, he's just now on the ground. Like, don't answer that question.
Yeah. Just
it's fine.
don't worry about it.
Don't. If you worry about it too much, don't. Just
suspend your disbelief.
It's fine. He's got to get on
this planet
the
has lower gravity.
Yeah. Hey. Done.
There you go.
Done. He tumbled gently downward onto this pile of sharp trash, and he's fine. That's fine. And he immediately looks down, and there's some people walking, and he's like, I should probably follow them. But he doesn't say that because he never say anything.
He doesn't say anything.
He just stares at them intensely. And then he ends up, they have like a whole rope system that they've set up.
Right, because there's a strong wind advisory
Yeah, all the time.
all the time.
There's like it's
Every day.
cyclical. Yeah. It must be like a wind that it's like a constant.
Right, like there's very little terrain on the planet.
Yeah.
Like the giant wave on the
That's
interstellar
exactly what I was going to
water
say.
planet.
I was like, yeah, just like the giant wave on the interstellar water planet where it goes around. Someday we'll do interstellar. But that's not today. So he ends up, this is another one of his like, oh, look how much pain he can endure, because he ends up grabbing an old parking meter and it makes his hand bleed. He like puts his hand through the
Right,
glass.
and he has like cracked ribs or something.
Yeah, because he fell off this chain.
And he still holds himself against the wind.
Right, because he's that badass. Which Kurt Russell worked out for 18 months.
He delayed production of the movie for 18 months.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to get swole naturally.
Naturally. And he did.
It worked for him.
It's effective.
Yes.
Highly effective.
It was a very effective.
Approve of this physique.
Yes.
And so he ends up meeting up with the people on the planet. I guess you could say that. He sneaks into like the middle.
But then the wind blows him off of a ledge and he falls.
Yeah.
And lands hard.
Well, he's
out.
So he's on the steps because he gets into their underground village. And he's on the steps looking over at people, and the wind blows and it blows him off the steps. And then he lands on the steps and rolls down to the bottom of the steps. So he's on the steps.
Ouch.
And then he falls onto the steps that he was on, and then he rolls down to the bottom. And then we see
that was
boots.
the straw that broke the camel's back.
Literally. But he does like and he like barfs up blood on the ground. Did you see that part?
Because he's got cracked ribs.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Poking his lungs.
It was a very like, because he doesn't even cry out at any point. Like,
right.
It's not that he doesn't have lines. He doesn't vocalize at all. Not even when he's like falling down the stairs. And then we see Boots coming down the stairs, and he looks up and it's children, his arch nemesis. And he's like, oh God. And he just passes out spontaneously.
From the trauma of seeing children looming over him. I'm supposed to be the one looming over children.
I also feel this way in the morning.
Shit?
I also feel this way in the morning sometimes when they come in and wake us up. I'm like, no, God. And then we see a meeting of the people in this village. And this gives us context about the role of soldiers in this world, because they are not surprised by him. They are frightened of him.
Right. He's a war machine.
He is a war machine. He is not really a person to them. He is a thing that has been made and that they're not sure if they can trust.
Right. He's a soldier with a capital S.
Right. And at no point is anyone like, he's a person. He's a traumatized person who needs our help. They're just like, well.
There is zero awareness of PTSD, sensory sensitivity, like emotional processing issues.
Right. It's exactly the conversation you would have imagined in the 90s.
It's kind of like, it's kind of like the U.S. in the 90s.
Yeah. Oh, wait. It's them, us now. I don't know. It's one of those things where if we'd had that conversation, this is a different movie. And maybe nobody in the group has any experience with that.
That's possible.
And old soldiers don't get retired in this world. So it's not like he would have gone off to a retirement facility where he would have been treated, where there was an understanding of what they were doing to these people. They would have just kept
sending him out until he died.
Yeah. So it's not really a conversation anybody needed to have. And really at no point is anyone like, no, he's a person and we need to save him. They're just like, well, he's a soldier, but
he's
maybe he can live here as long as he doesn't like,
I guess,
hurt anybody or whatever. I don't know. These dudes are Mace and his wife, Sandra, already have him and they're nursing him back to health already. So whatever. And so he lives with them for a while, I guess. And our first glimpse at their interaction is she's pouring him medicine into this spoon,
Right.
which what kind of medicine would this be? The only thing they get is what comes from the trash and what they had with them. It looks like straight liquor. It could just be straight liquor.
Right.
Yeah. So she's going to give it to him and she looks down and he's
Dull
looking
the
up at
pain,
her.
knock him out.
Yeah. Well, he's looking up at her and they just have this moment of like, here, take the medicine. And he just takes the medicine because whatever.
He's a soldier.
He's a soldier. Although you'd think he would have to like establish rank. Like he wouldn't just do what a civilian told him to do.
The like soldier ranks and like medic ranks are different.
Right, but she's not a medic. She doesn't.
Well, but from his perspective, oh, here's like a person taking care of my medical issues. That's their job.
Yeah.
I don't specialize in that.
Well, this was on my second viewing. I got to thinking that this could be like he's reeling from what happened.
Right. And he's confused in the face of a woman.
There's also tits, but it's more like he expected to live and die as a soldier.
Right.
And instead he was replaced. And he was never supposed to be replaced.
Right. So it's very disorienting.
So it's like one day you showed up at work and they brought in a machine that knew how to code better than you did. And you had a code off.
Which
and
is not ChatGPT.
which is not ChatGPT. And you guys had a code off. And then when you lost, they just put you in a garbage truck and took you to the dump.
The philosophical term is domicide, where your home has been destroyed.
Yeah.
Your sense of home.
Your
has been
sense of
destroyed.
self and home. Yeah. Everything that he was comfortable
Everything
in.
you've been attached to
Yeah.
for grounding your world experience is gone.
Is gone. And now you are on a trash planet with a group of people that crash landed here and no
12
one ever
years ago.
no one ever came to rescue them, so they've made a life here. And now you are faced with the challenge of making a life with these people, the very same sort of people that you were taught were expendable and whom you've never actually interacted with. And now you realize that they were not expendable, but you were. So this is a very
Knife twist.
hard moment for Todd.
Not only was he replaced, but every foundation of his worldview was a lie.
Yeah. I almost think the mechanical, like us supposed to see him as a machine thing would have worked better if we hadn't given him a name. If he had simply
just been
been
a
his
number.
number and
Yeah.
they named him like Todd or something. Because even every time Gary Busey's character calls him Todd, it's like, what? He's like, Todd's our best man. Okay.
You personified him too much there.
Yeah, no, I don't think they would have named them. I think they would have just
that's a
given
good
them
point.
numbers.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and then I think Kane would be like 0001, like we started over at the beginning, because we don't need any of the old ones anymore.
Right. Or you do like the C41N.
Yeah. Right. Leet speak.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that would have been more.
Like Finn in Star Wars, the new Star Wars movies.
Yeah, the Todd bothers me. I mean, it doesn't bother me enough that I don't like the movie, but the Todd feels too much like they were
This movie is very well executed, so the things that we find to pick on are very nitpicky.
Right. If you want me to dehumanize this character, don't name him, is what I'm saying. Give him a number, a designation.
It makes it, if he only has a number, it's easier for the viewer to view him as less than human.
Right. And I think it makes the switch from soldier to Todd more a cleaner line, instead of, we really never see a transition point where he starts to, I mean, we kind of do, but it's not a very big shift outwardly for his way he interacts with the world. because we don't get any more conversation from him, really. We just get him actually answering questions and occasionally not saying sir at the end of them, really. Because once he comes back and he's getting better, he starts going out and about and like experiencing life with these people. And we find out about these snakes that populate the planet, which, wow, you live on a planet full of trash and snakes.
That's rough.
That's some bullshit right there.
You'd think if it was a planet devoid of life, full of dumped human trash,
Yeah.
you'd at least not have the critters.
Right. Well, I mean, it was a habitable planet. It's got a habitable atmosphere. And we chose to just dump trash on it. Were the snakes already on here? Was it literally just a desert planet filled with nasty wind and snakes?
Maybe the snakes came in the trash.
Maybe the snakes came in the trash. We don't know. It's not. I wouldn't. That's not. It's not that movie. It's not that movie. It's not that movie. And there's really only like 1 or 2 snakes that they used for all the filming,
Right.
and they stitched their mouth closed. So,
Because they were highly venomous.
yeah, because they're super venomous. And it's only really relevant to mention the snakes because that's what ends up getting kicked out. Because he has like
That's what gets him kicked out, but it's also
what gets him
what
brought
redeems
back.
him.
Yep. And as we go through him learning to live with these people, we start to see him experiencing like PTSD flashbacks where he's seeing himself killing these same kinds of people. So he's
Right.
literally
This is the first time he's experiencing like stimulating environments outside of the military context.
right.
And his only context has been the military experience, the war experience. So his associations are not stable for
Yeah.
living inside a community. So there's lots of noisy things happening, lots of fast movement. The only thing his experience has to associate that with is
War.
war.
Yeah. War.
And so it's
Also-
very disorienting and very jarring for him.
Right. Also, he has killed these same kinds of people in the past. And at the time when he did it, they weren't human. They were just the enemy.
Right.
And-
They were an expendable hurdle.
Yeah. And now they are becoming human to him. And he is realizing how inhuman he was. And he has to convey all of this with just intense stares.
And he does.
And he does. He really does.
Yeah. Kurt Russell really shows his range.
By having no... It's wild because he's not doing anything. Most of the time, he's just sitting and staring at you or staring at a character, which poor Sandra gets stared at the most. And the first time I watched it, it felt a little creepy. I was like, this is a little... Not creepy in that he was intentionally being creepy, but just in like a... He was realizing his attraction to her in a sexual way. And the next time I watched it, it felt more like he was realizing that this was something he never had and couldn't really have.
Right. And I like that they didn't like force that on him. Like they didn't try to like move him, change his character so much, or I don't know, force it to the point where his character would be capable of having like an interactive reciprocal relationship
Yeah.
with a woman to the point that they could like have sex.
Yeah.
All right. That's even at the very end of the movie, a sexual like relationship,
Yeah.
maybe a like sexual event.
Yeah.
As-
Event.
Right. Just
Yeah.
like one instance of
No, it
like,
wouldn't have
physical
worked.
sex separate from any like romantic intimacy. That may have worked like as a very clinical thing, just to show like he's experiencing more of what it is to be human or something like
Yeah.
that. Right. That's the only situation I can think of where that might have worked. But I like that they didn't push it so that even at the end of the movie, you know, he's been with these people for a while. He's now like a core member of the group. I mentioned this to Rachel while we were watching it. It feels a lot like in the Murderbot books, where Murderbot refuses to acknowledge, like to itself, that I care about these people.
Right.
They're my crew. And if anybody hurts them, I will hunt that thing down and tear them to shreds.
Yeah.
Because they're my crew.
Yeah. They're my crew. They're my clients. They're not my friends. But
Right. I don't care about them. They're not my friends. They're my crew.
But if anything ever hurt them, I would make it eat its own entrails.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we get a lot of very similar vibes from Todd.
Yeah.
So that even at the end, like he has this really strong attachment to these people now, but he doesn't, it's more like he has an attachment to the group.
Yeah.
Like now he has a purpose again. There's a thing that he's very good at, keeping these people alive.
Yeah.
And that's like the story that he's telling himself now is
Right.
This is my reason for being here. But he doesn't really have any strong attachments to individual peoples in like an interactive relationship manner.
Yeah. In like an emotional intimacy sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then even at the end, it's completely off the table that he would have an emotional, romantic, intimate relationship with anybody.
I think it's more like he is experiencing a sort of emotional intimacy, but I think the physical intimacy would be off the table. Because the one time she actually touches him,
right? He like
the one
freaks
time,
out.
yeah, he starts shaking.
Yeah.
And he won't let her look at his hand because he cuts himself while he's helping her prepare dinner, which is really cute.
Because he's distracted watching her play with her son.
Right. And she goes to touch him to bind his wound, and he can hardly let her do that.
But Kurt Russell can't really back away because right after filming started, after his 18 months of grueling physical training, he broke his ankle.
Yeah, he broke his ankle like the first day on the set.
So they
He
had to,
tripped over a cabbage because they have
A
a garden.
cabbage?
Yeah, they have a garden. And so the rumor on the streets was he hurt himself in like doing a stunt or whatever. And he was like, "No, I tripped over a cabbage." Like he tripped over a fake cabbage that they had, and it broke his ankle. So they had to do all of his laying down scenes
right, they had
first.
to reorder all
Yeah.
the entire filming schedule.
Yeah. And then all of his where he's sitting, and then all of where he's standing still. And then they did all of his movement scenes last. So that running scene at the very beginning is one of the last ones filmed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, it's good. And the part right after he cuts himself and she goes to bind his finger and she asks him like, what's going on in there? What's moving around up in that stoic mug of yours? And you get the sense that he wants to say something, but he's struggling to say it. And then he just like, he comes out with it. Like, I'm just going to say it.
Right. 'Cause she's turning away.
Yeah.
Because she's given up on receiving an answer.
Right.
And he's like, I got to throw something out.
Yeah. He's like, fear and discipline. She's like, all the time. And he's like, yeah, all the time. That's all I think about and all I feel.
Yep.
And that's it. And you're like, oh, okay. That's an insight into your character. Thank you so much for that. And then after that, we get our next kind of impactful scene, I guess. This is our next pivot scene for the movie. And it's where he's beating up a muffler, which is really a very cleverly disguised punching bag.
Right. It's looking at the way, like looking at the way that it is.
You can tell by
You
the
can
way
tell
it
by the
is.
way that it is.
Yeah.
It's like they made a mold out of a muffler, a banged up muffler,
Yeah.
and then took the muffler out of the mold and then filled it with expanding foam.
Yeah.
It looks just like the edges of the expanding foam, like where you have the bags of expanding foam that you like stick in the box with the thing and then close the box and it just expands around the thing. You know what I'm talking about?
Nope. But that's okay.
Never mind.
Foam. Foamy
Yeah,
foam.
you just spray expanding foam into a space and then close it up.
It's good. Foam.
And
Foam
it
sums
fills
it up.
the gaps. And then they like spray painted it silver.
Yeah, it's great. He's banging away on it, and he's remembering things. He's having
He's
a traumatic
processing his emotional trauma
He
in
is,
an environment, a context that he feels physically safe.
Right. Well, he's processing his trauma. He's feeling it, and he's probably experiencing an episode like a flashback.
Yeah.
And instead of harming anyone else, he's beating the shit out of this muffler. And someone comes up to him, a fellow that he had saved before, Jimmy Pig, who's played by Michael Chiklis.
Which I heard him called Pig, and I noticed that his mask when he's out in the wind advisory has like a pig snout shape over his nose.
Yeah. Yeah, he's Jimmy Pig. He played the Thing in that horrible, and we say horrible very lightly here because I liked that movie. The Incredible Four.
Oh, okay. The Thing in the Fantastic Four.
Literally The Thing. The Fantastic. I was like, Incredible Four does not sound correct. Fantastic Four. The one with Yoan Gruffeld. That one.
I thought
You like The Thing and the Thing? I know what you thought.
Okay, when you said he played that thing, the movie that came to mind was it was the one with, was it Jeff Bridges? It's like the post-apocalyptic noir detective guy.
R.I.P.D.?
No.
Oh.
But there's like this demon rat thing.
What? What are you talking about? What movie is this?
Okay, hold on. I don't think we finished it. Okay, I need to look up. Okay, I found it.
I'm so ready.
Split Second. Rutger Hauer as a noir detective.
Oh, you said Jeff Bridges. I thought oh my God.
I got that mixed up.
Okay, yes. Split Second.
Okay. Oh, now I'm trying to circle back. That thing. You said, "Oh yeah, he played that thing," and I was like, "Oh, what movies have I watched with Rachel where there's an unknown thing, played by somebody who knows?"
No, literally The Thing.
The Thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. For a second, I thought you were talking
Segue
about
over.
Dylan Dog. Do you remember the movie Dylan Dog with Brandon Routh?
Dylan Dog?
Yes. He's like a noir detective, a supernatural detective.
Brandon Routh is a noir supernatural detective?
Yes. I had forgotten that movie existed, which is a feat. Okay. And then I saw somebody post a picture from it, and I was like, oh my God. You know the part in a movie when the wind suddenly blows on somebody's face and you know they've just had like an amazing revelation?
Yes.
That happened to me. And I was like, oh my God, we need to do that movie because I don't think Matt's watched it. And
Dylan Dog, Dead of Night.
Yes.
A world famous private detective specializes in the affairs of the Walking Dead.
Yeah, the adventures of supernatural private investigator Dylan Dog, who seeks out the monsters of the Louisiana Bayou in his signature red shirt, black jacket, and blue jeans.
Oh, we got Sam Huntington from Being Human.
Yep.
Ooh, Peter Stormare. I thought it was Starmore. Anyway. Okay, so good cast.
It has. Are you ready for its Rotten Tomatoes score?
7.
5. So obviously
Okay,
we need
so
to
we
watch
need to
it.
watch this movie.
Clearly, but whoop, 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 whoop. Let's go back to Soldier for a minute. So he's beating the shit out of it, and the Thing shows up behind him. And by the Thing, I mean Jimmy Pig, to give him this scarf to thank him for saving his life. And if
Thank you for saving me from that wind-powered combine.
Yeah. Which was being powered by wind at the time. Anyway, when like 5 dudes couldn't pull the rope back, but he was just like, oh, I'll help. And he just pulled the rope by himself. That part.
He's strong.
He's like real swole.
This planet has lower gravity, remember?
That's very
They've been
true.
on this lower gravity planet for 12 years,
Yep.
and he just arrived.
It's basically John Carpenter.
That makes so much sense.
When he goes to Mars and he can just leap around and shit. Yeah, just like that. It's exactly what it is. And if you pay attention to his like PTSD flashback that he's having, Jimmy Pig is the character that comes at him out the door. Because he's...
Oh, it is?
Yeah, he's fitting a clip back into his gun to shoot this little girl. And Jimmy Pig comes from the door and goes to grab him. And he turns around and starts choking him. And then we immediately flash back to real life. And he is choking the real guy.
Okay. My take on that, I don't think he was getting ready to shoot that little girl. I think he was just reloading, and she was there, and he was getting ready to move on to the next thing.
I think it's implied he was getting ready to shoot her. Like he missed her, and he ran out, and he was reloading to...
I'll agree to disagree.
Agree to disagree on this.
And we can move on.
Because he keeps coming back to it, so it must be a traumatic event.
Well, that was
he
probably the
flashes to it
first
several
woman that he
times.
ever saw that he didn't shoot.
It's possible. It's possible. But I think we're supposed to think that he did it. But you think what you want to think, it's fine. But he's choking Jimmy. He's choking Jimmy. And he ends up snapping out of it in time for him to not die. Either by choking or getting his head crushed. Either one. He just saves him 2 ways around. And after that, they're like, shit, we need a meeting. So they have a meeting.
He's too dangerous.
And they're like, we like him as a person, but he has some problems.
He's not really a person.
They don't say that.
Well, I know.
Yeah, they're like...
They don't say the quiet part out loud.
They don't say the quiet part out loud. And this is when I started to think, you know what? This is proto-Murderbot. Because they're like, he's gone rogue. He can't be trusted. You know you can't trust those things.
Those things.
We need to... He can stay on the planet. Obviously, we can't do anything about that.
He can stay close by. Like, we'll kind of take care of him. We can't trust him around
Anybody at all. So
children's.
let's give him a coat and the canteen and just a good knife and send him on his way. And some boots. They give him good boots, a good knife, a coat, and a canteen. And they're like, best of luck. And they send him out. And he gets like teary-eyed. Kurt Russell at this point has had maybe 20 words in total.
Yeah.
And he just looks around at everybody and gets this like misty-eyed look. And you're like, oh my God, I'm so sad for this guy right now. Without him having to deliver a single line. No parting soliloquy. No, I understand. Nothing. Just like looks around, meets everybody's eyes, and then is like, fine. And leaves.
I guess this is where I live now.
Right. And this is right.
Pipe.
This is right after the like really heartbreaking scene where it's Christmas. Mm-hmm. And he's sitting there with a bowl of sandwiches.
And he gets triggered.
Like cut sandwiches on one leg and something else on the other leg. Yeah, and he gets triggered. He gets Like there's so much light and movement and sound, and he can't handle it. And he stands up and he realizes he's about to do something he doesn't want to do. And he looks over at the family that he has fallen in love with the idea of, which is Mace and Sandra and Nathan, the child. And he ends up just leaving. Somebody walks in front of him, and by the time that person has walked past, he's gone. And then we see him watching everybody from the outside, which is metaphorical. He's on the outside,
It's literal
looking in.
and metaphorical.
Literal and metaphorical. And then he ends up just sitting on the roof and sort of staring off, which it's really good that everybody throws away their old Christmas lights, or these people would have nothing to decorate with.
Right. Thank you, disposable consumerism.
Yeah. Sandra's actually the one who points out that he fought at the Tannhauser Gate, too, which is another
There
Blade
were
Runner.
words on his arm.
Yeah, which is another Blade Runner tie-in.
Right. They had Tannhauser Gate
And Shoulder of Orion.
and Shoulder of Orion,
Yeah.
which Rutger Hauer
Mentions in Blade Runner.
in Blade Runner.
Yeah. See, you tied it back.
In one of the most heartbreaking
Soliloquies.
post-apocalyptic noir soliloquies.
Oof, we do love a good, like, soldier with a heart of gold.
Right. A gray villain.
Oh, we do
Right?
love a gray villain. Like, yeah. Although I would argue Todd's not. I mean, he's a gray.
No, I'm saying Rutger Hauer in
Yes.
Blade Runner
Oh, yes.
was a very gray villain.
Right. We just.
We're
love
not
Blade Runner.
reviewing Blade Runner right now.
No.
I don't want to.
No.
Exhaust-
I just wanted to.
I-
I wanted to tie in the tie-ins while the tie-ins were ready to be
Yes.
tied.
Yes.
And now
There-
we're ready to.
There is an official link with Blade Runner, so
Yeah.
it's
Here we go.
sanctioned.
So he leaves. Todd leaves, and Todd is just being sad.
He
Todd.
makes a campfire in a pipe.
Sad Todd in a pipe, which is right where he came in. Like that's where he landed. That's where he first found the rope, because that is behind him.
Right.
Yeah, when the first wave of wind comes, and because I remember thinking, why doesn't he just get in the little tunnel thingy? And he starts a
He's
fire,
got nowhere else to go.
and he's just sitting there, and we get our sad slow motion '90s teardrop where he's crying, and he blinks, and it's slow motion for like a second as the tear moves down his eye. And this is when I thought, I really want somebody to do a fan edit of this movie, because we have all these weird slow motion scenes where it's slow motion for just a second or 2 seconds or 3 seconds, just these really short slow motion scenes. And I want somebody to go through and speed those all up just to see what the movie looks like without that weird interruption.
Right, because they didn't shoot it at a higher frame rate for those scenes that they slowed it down later. So it feels a little choppy when it goes slow motion.
Well, I think it's supposed to. I think it's supposed to make you stop in that moment and see it.
Oh, it's supposed to feel like frame by frame choppy.
Yeah, I think you're supposed to be like, oof. It's supposed to make you like remember that scene.
Gotcha.
There's also
Pippin's,
that.
like hard passed out.
I know, he's sound asleep. But there's also that Lorena McKinnon song that plays over the montage of him learning how to be a person again, which is the night ride across the Caucasus.
Oh yes, the song.
Yes, everything
Rachel's
up till
like,
now.
who sings that song?
Everything up till now is very straightforward sci-fi. But this reminded me of when we were watching Daredevil with the kids, and Evanescence started playing over the Daredevil, the Ben Affleck Daredevil.
Yes,
I
the
did
Ben
not
Affleck
show my
Daredevil
children
movie.
Charlie Cox's Daredevil. We were watching the Ben Affleck one, and they had the funeral
extended version.
Yeah, they had the funeral, and Evanescence starts playing over the funeral, and I was just like, I had another moment where wind hit my face, and it was like, oh my God, core memory unlocked. Because I like this song, and I always am vaguely reminded of this song from something, and it must be from this movie, because Dad fucking loved this movie. But I just want to point out the Lorena McKinnon song in the middle of our sci-fi shoot 'em up soldier with a heart of gold movie, because at this point he gets kicked out also, I mean, partly because of the choking the dude, but also because Nathan, there's a snake in the room, And instead of just killing the snake, he tosses Nathan a boot. And then he slams the boot on the bed and then like points at Nathan like, okay, now you do it. And Nathan's like 5.
What?
He's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
So
and he
then
does
the snake strikes at Nathan. So he just jumps in, grabs the snake, and then he throws the snake back like 6 feet away.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, we're going to try this again.
Yeah. Smack it with the boot. And they come in
Smack it
and they're
with the
like,
boot.
what the shit?
You're in, like, our child was bit by one of these snakes as a baby, and that's why he can't talk. He was sick for a really long time. You're endangering the life of our child.
Yeah. You've got
What
to
the
go.
fuck?
You've got to go. And so that's when that's awesome.
You're a
It's a
danger to
culmination
our
of events,
civilization.
but that's the catalyst to get him out. And so then we cut back to Sandra and Mace sleeping on their like swing bed. They're like their sex swing bed. I don't know what this is.
Oh, I think they just wanted to make it look like steampunk, cyberpunk, whatever.
I guess this looks like every time somebody moves, the whole thing swings and creaks, and you would just die, and your pillow falls off the back, just constantly. But somehow a snake gets up there with them, and it's making its way.
I
up.
like that they're always, when they're in bed together, they're always snuggling.
They are always snuggling. There's not a lot of room on their plane wing. So
Oh, right, but and we've talked a bit about.
yeah, is
like,
it just a
Kate-
plane wing, or
Kate
is
is always surprised at us that we like each other.
she's like, that's not real life? That's what she always says. Like, well, it's my life.
You're so unusual as a married couple because you actually like each other.
Well,
And so in movies, when
you're like,
like,
look, they're
they're in-
snuggling. That's real life. Look how they're doing that.
and so like when the couple is in bed, they're never like up against each other.
Yeah.
They're always on each other's side of the bed.
Right. Well, not in
And
this
so
one.
in this movie, they're always like topless. And they're always snuggling,
You're
right?
like, that's the other
Right?
part that I like.
That's
Yeah.
the real life
Okay.
part,
That's
right? Of being in bed with your spouse. Is
Okay. you're comfortable.
you're
Yes,
comfortable
yes.
and you're
Yes.
snuggly and it's cozy.
But there's
and
a
it's
snake.
happy.
There's a snake. Not
But
that kind of snake.
This cozy,
The not
happy,
good kind of
snuggly
snake.
moment gets
Yeah.
interrupted
by a snake.
by a venomous snake.
Which Nathan kills with a boot.
He
And
goes,
they're like-
yoink,
Yep.
smash.
Almost as if
Someone
taught
trained
him how to protect himself. Like, I can't always be here to protect
And
you, but I
this
can
is
teach you how to
where
protect yourself.
Mace gets the wind in the face, hair blowing in the wind moment. My God, I've had it wrong this whole time.
Yeah. And so he runs off to go find him.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
And
dies.
Sandra's like, well, we voted.
We voted wrong.
I know. He's like, nope, sorry, hard pass. That was the wrong decision. I'm gonna bring him back. I'd rather ask for forgiveness than for permission. I'm gonna go get him right now. So he runs to go find him, and he finds him like immediately. So he can't be that far. He walked like 10 feet, climbed in a pole, and just like lit a fire. It was like,
Look, Todd has some binoculars and he's watching the town
Yeah.
from his pipe.
Mace gets there, and then a soldier spaceship passes over. I mean,
Oh yeah, we have this like interlude back to
yeah, we've been having interludes back, and
Mackie, Mickey, whatever.
yeah,
Like, oh yeah, here's this biannual security sweep, and this is the region of our established, solar systems, whatever. We're gonna sweep this uninhabited planet
yeah, and it'll be
Just-
fine.
just for
It'll be
field
fine.
training.
Yeah, Meekum.
Meekum.
Yeah, we're going to put down our soldiers. They're going to get a little bit of on the ground training where there's like not really any problems. We'll let them play in the sandbox for a little while and they can hop back in, and then we'll go out to McDonald's and then we'll head home. Okay, it's going to be fine. And so
Everybody
actually,
gets a milkshake on the way home.
I know. And they're like, well, what happens if there's people there? And he's like, there's not people there. And they're like,
Right, and
but
the
what
actu-
happens?
The guy with actual decades of military experience is like, we plan for this regardless.
Yeah.
What if there's resistance?
Right. And Colonel Meekum's like, well, then they'll be hostiles because they're not supposed to be there. And we'll just kill them. We'll just straight up murder them all. And they're all like, oh, yeah, great plan. And then we
Cool. That's planning session done. We've accounted for all the edge cases.
Yeah. Variables all taken care of. We need to consider nothing else.
We're not going to encounter a highly fortified this shows up in Mass Effect all the time.
I was wondering when you were going to bring Mass Effect into this.
It just now dawned on me that Mass Effect would fit into this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really, really well.
Yes. A lamo.
Like a illegal mining operation.
Okay, a heavily fortified illegal mining operation.
Yes,
Yeah.
like in Enemy Mine.
Like an enemy mine. Yeah, no, they don't. They're just like, nope, it's fine.
Right. Like this, that is like, there's money in the heavily fortified illegal mining operation, right?
Heavily fortified illegal mining operation. A FIM.
Let me throw it in a chat GPT. I bet I could get a better acronym. But chat GPT is better at that than I am, but not better at coding. So anyway, in this kind of universe, going to an uninhabited planet that has a breathable atmosphere and saying, hey, it's possible that somebody else is here scavenging, mining, whatever. And there's a lot of money in that. And there could be some well-trained like resistance.
I mean, wouldn't that
presence.
be the point of sweeping unoccupied planets? Would be to find out if there's heavily fortified mining operations.
You're sweeping them,
yeah,
because
there's the possibility that there's smugglers or
because especially the ones with a breathable atmosphere,
right?
That's an attractive location,
yeah,
for any kind of illicit operation,
right? Otherwise, what's the point in going? Why waste the resources if you literally just fly around, scan shit, and then go home? It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
But that's okay because again, it's not that movie. It's not that movie. The only point of this conversation.
Okay, so the point of this conversation, from my understanding, you go next.
Okay.
So I don't mean
I can wait.
I don't mean to just keep jumping in and interrupting.
No, it's fine.
You, but,
jump.
The purpose of this conversation in the plot is to demonstrate the naivete of Meekum.
Yes. And the carelessness with which we treat marginalized lives, like the types of people that are living on these quote uninhabited planets.
Right. It expands on Meekum's character,
right,
and it also expands on the societal view in this universe.
The lack of regard for human life.
Yes.
Yeah, all human life.
Any human life.
Yes. So after they've established that, we kind of go back, and this is when the soldier ship shows up. And the first thing they do is straight up blow up Mace. I mean, they try to blow them both up, but they blow up Mace. And we get like a moment where we realize his legs have been blown off. And then Todd runs back and just grabs him by the back of the collar and starts dragging him. He absolutely could have thrown this man over his shoulder. He's just like, nope, I'm just going to drag you. And so he drags him to a marginally safe place, like a piece of debris. And Mace is like, what? Like, why did they do that? Was that a mistake? And Todd just shakes his head. No. He's still not talking.
Right.
He's like,
no vocalization. He doesn't. He doesn't even go. Mm-mm.
No, he just
Shakes his
He
head.
looks at him intently for a minute, like, do I lie to this man? And then he just goes,
His head vibrates.
yeah.
Quickly side to
I
side.
can't even, because I have to say something out loud because this is an audio podcast, but he just shakes his head. And then he's like, oh no, like, are they going to go and attack the settlement? What about my son? But he just dies. Todd does try to save him. He tries to tie a tourniquet, but Mace is like, no, it's not going to work, man. I've lost
too much blood already.
I'm gone. And that's why we're going to need a holograph of me when we go back to Libria. I said Liberia. Libria.
From Equilibrium.
Well, first I thought Prosium, and I thought, no, that's the medication they take. And then I thought Prosia, which was supposed to be the name of the country, which they didn't use. And then I circled back to Libria. So sorry about that. But Mace dies, which you would think would be like now the way is clear for him to get with Sandra.
Which I appreciate they didn't go.
They didn't.
That's the cheap angle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he ends up running back in time to see them like shelling the village. And he ends up repelling the attack. He gets a gun and fires at the tanks. These itty bitty little tanks. They look like the wind up tanks. Like when the kids were little and you get like a squishy car with giant plastic wheels.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what it looks like. But he ends up, and they're like, "Oh my God, they're weaponized. We have to retreat." And then they're like, "Okay, so we're gonna go back. And we're gonna throw everything we've got at it."
Oh yeah, and Church is like, "Hold on, they sent 3 men in to clear out."
Yeah,
Like, it's obvious these men have no military experience.
right. Because Todd just kills them all.
Right.
Like, no problem. He kills all 3 people. And they're like, oh my God, we're clearly up against a superior military force. They must be like fortified. They must have their own infantry. There's absolutely no way these 3 men could have been defeated any other way.
There's dozens of them.
There must be dozens of them. And so this is the one time where Meekum listens to Church, because Church is like, no, we need to heavily arm the men, retreat to a safe distance, and then just blow them all up. Waiting in there is absolutely not the way to go. That's just throwing men into the shredder for no reason. And he's like, okay, but
I'll meet you halfway.
right. But this small delay gives Todd just enough time to lay out his defenses, which in no way includes evacuating the village. Because with that, I mean, in Todd's defense, that's not him. That's logistics. He's focused on killing all these people.
He's counteroffensive.
Yeah.
That's his job. That's his specialty. That's his expertise.
Right.
Right. And that's all he's focused on.
Right. Sandra even asks him, like, what's your plan? And he's like, I'm going to kill them all until they're dead. That's my plan. And then he pulls out his black face makeup and does the like angle paint thing, which is the most Rambo thing he does, where he like paints his face.
Break up the lines of the face. So
Yeah.
it's hard to recognize. Yeah.
Right. Which we get a really cool shot with when he's standing in the water and they walk past and he's pressed up against the wall.
Yeah.
And the light passes over him, but they don't see him because he's got his camouflage on.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point in the movie onward, it's pretty much just
It's straight up action.
It's
movie.
just straight action movie. It is Todd killing everybody in dramatic and improbable ways. Until we get to the part where he finally has his showdown with Kane, because of course he has a showdown with Kane where they have to
This is
fist
where
fight
it all
out.
began.
Yeah. And so they fist fight it out. And we get to a point where he's got Kane in the water. He's got his arms around his neck, and he ends up breaking Kane's neck to kill him.
The pivotal moment in the fight is Todd is backed up against a helicopter.
Yeah.
And Kane is about to strike with the killing blow. Todd looks down at like a curved piece of metal, like a sickle, on the ground next to Kane. And Kane notices, because Todd wants him to notice,
Mm-hmm.
And so Todd is like, I'm going to go get it. That's my weapon. I'm going to kill you with it. But Cain goes for it. And when Cain goes for it, Todd is like, aha. And he pulls the helicopter blade down and slices Cain across the belly.
Yeah.
And that's the more accurate representation of what hand-to-hand combat is like in a military conflict, where it's not just this sterile environment with chains that you climb up.
Right.
There's the entire environment to make use of, and whoever can most resourcefully make use of the environment is the superior warrior in that situation.
Right, which is why Cain is able to take out 3 of them on a chain, but Todd is able to kill 17 of them with wind and
In
a
real
couple
combat.
of guns.
Yeah.
Yeah. In real combat. And save at least Sandra and the
At
kids.
least a third of the colony.
Sandra and the kids, the ones he cared about, I guess.
Sandra took all the kids and actually went like underground.
Yeah.
Nobody else hid
It's fine.
themselves underground.
It's fine. Maybe he was mad at them for voting him off the island. I don't know.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
The only ones who survived were the ones who didn't vote against him.
Yeah. I don't think he did that on purpose, but I think that's what happens. Yeah. And so this whole
Poetic justice.
the whole purpose of this scene is just to show you, like, it doesn't matter how strong you are. It doesn't matter how fast you are. It doesn't matter how genetically superior you are. If you don't know what the fuck you're doing, you're not going to win.
Right. In the real world, experience trumps talent every time.
Right. Like, I love the part where Todd gets in the vehicle and Cain is already at the settlement and he's already bombing it. And so Todd is driving up with the vehicle and Cain's like 1 to 2, because he's talking to the number 2, the second vehicle. He's like, fall in line beside me and commence shelling.
Move to 9:00 and commence attacking.
Yeah. And
affirmative, number 1.
Todd goes, affirmative. And he just keeps driving straight at him. And he's like, change your course, number 2. You need to be at my 9:00. Commence shelling. And he's like, yep, that's what I'm doing. And he just keeps driving straight at him. And any other experienced soldier would have immediately been suspicious. But because they're not experienced soldiers, he's able to ram him sideways before he's like, you're on a collision course. And Todd's like, affirmative.
One out of all of his lines.
Yeah. That's the funniest.
That's
Yes.
probably his only joke.
Yeah. We're supposed to know that he's intelligent. That's what the classroom scene at the very beginning is. And he is a purpose-built machine.
A selected,
Yeah.
a highly screened and selected machine.
Yeah. Whose entire purpose is fighting in wars. And he's been doing that for his entire life.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter that in the test tube, these guys looked better. They can't beat that.
It's like in work situations, I've worked with younger people who are extremely intelligent, higher IQ than me, have worked at like really prestigious companies, whatever. And then you say, okay, let's go solve this really practical problem. I've been breaking computers for 30 years.
You can't outfail me, bitch.
Right? Anytime someone asks me, like, okay, how do I get started with that? I was like, well, you just keep breaking things. And after you do that, like a few hundred times, you start to get a sense of, oh, here's how I do something that doesn't break it.
Aha.
Okay.
Yes.
And over the years,
I know how to not fix it. Yes.
I know how to do a thing in a way that doesn't break the system.
Yeah.
And over years, you accumulate this set of, knowledge, experiential knowledge, that you get somebody that only has a few years of experience, and it's like, okay, let me explain this to you. You don't do it that way.
Yeah.
Because that has a chance of breaking things.
Trust me, I've done it.
Because I've done that.
Yeah.
Multiple times.
It's like, like when I used to teach pottery. And I would tell people that it doesn't matter how strong you are. It doesn't matter how good you are at anything else. As soon as you sit down in front of this pottery wheel, we are all equal and you're all going to suck at it. And you're going to suck for a long time and then you're going to get better. And you just have to accept that that's how it's going to be. And practice is the only way you're going to get better at this. But you could be a bodybuilder or you could be a desk jockey. It literally doesn't matter. We're all going to start in the same place. And it's exactly the same. Yes, the newer soldiers are physically superior, but clearly Todd's superior experience is what wins the day.
Right.
Because he is able to trick them, or he's able to trick them over and over and over again. All warfare is deception. And Todd fucking knows it. Yeah. He even does the very improbable thing where he's in the water and he gets up and like sneak attacks somebody with a machine gun.
Hey, that was my line.
and then they're like, more machine gunning is happening. And he has somehow transitioned immediately over to this area where he has a dead soldier tied up, rigged so he can fire his machine guns from a distance.
To lure them in.
Yeah. And
to
so
a bomb.
Right. They get all close because they think they've got this guy. They've got the sniper, which they keep calling him a sniper, even though he's shooting people with like bazookas and shit. And then
that's how good he is.
That's how he snipes people with a rocket.
RPG sniper.
If you blow somebody up from a distance, is that sniping? I don't know. Does it have to be a sniper? Right? Well, he blows these people up. Anyway, he gets this all. It happens. And so they're like, oh my God, we can't. All of our soldiers are dead.
There's dozens of them.
We can't stand against this. They could be right outside the door right now. And so they decide they're going to blow up the planet. He's like, do you have one of these missiles? Meekum asks
a
church.
Planet killer?
He's like, a planet killer? Yeah, we've got 15. I'm happy to just drop one here and then we could go blow up 15 more planets, whatever. And so they task Todd's old unit, who have been demoted to logistics, putting up the communication satellite, whatever.
Only soldiers get weapons.
Right. And they're like, you don't even have to say sir anymore. And poor Riley looks so sad. But they task them with going out and arming this missile. And so, of course, Todd just walks up. They stare at each other for like 15 minutes.
They salute each other.
Which is an entire conversation, which is like, man, don't blow that missile up. I got people here that I love. And Riley's like, man, shit's been terrible since you left. And Todd's like,
I don't even want to be doing this.
He's like, Todd's like, I know, but I'm back. And I think we can stand against them together. And Riley's like, man, I've been fucking here for
sir,
this.
Yes, sir.
For years. And then they salute each other. That whole conversation happens and they're literally just looking at each other. And then they salute each other. And then the next moment is when, how does he get in? The door opens.
He comes in with Riley's crew returning from the bomb.
Yeah.
And no, something's happening and Meekum is trying to leave. Or he's walking down the hallway and the elevator door opens up and Todd is right there.
Well, he ends up shooting Church because Church is like, you can't do this. They're going to leave Riley's men.
Yes, they're going to leave.
They're going to leave Riley's men. And Church is like, you can't do that. We got to wait till they're done. And
yeah, they got
like,
6 minutes.
Yeah, he's like, no, we're going to go right now. And Meekum ends up shooting Church as like a, haha, I'm so badass. No one can stand against me. I'm going to even shoot Church.
Right. The one thing keeping him alive.
Right. And then when it finally comes to the showdown between him and Todd, he wets his pants.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Todd ends up kicking him and the woman and the man out. I forgot their names. They don't matter. They're there for plucky situational awareness, I guess. And he kicks them out on the planet with this missile, which has been armed, and they have 25 minutes, and it's counting down. And they're like, "Why are you doing this? Well, let us on. We'll help you. What's going on?" And that's when Todd gets his last line, which is, "You are obsolete." And then the door shuts and they fly off. Him and Riley, Todd and Riley and the survivors all fly off in this ship as the planet explodes, and they set course for the Trinity Moons, which is where Sandra was headed in the first place.
Yep.
And then he picks the kid up because Nathan walks in and he holds his arms up.
Right. And so this whole time Nathan's walking in, I was like, oh, I don't remember the last time I watched this movie to the end. I was like, so I'm guessing what's going to happen. Okay, Nathan's going to walk in and he's going to salute Todd. I know he's going to do it, right? They're conveying this whole vibe that Nathan is like identifying with Todd and Nathan wants to be Todd or whatever. But it's like the opposite. Todd is identifying with Nathan.
Yes.
And like rediscovering his inner child as a way to become more human.
Even the part where Nathan very symbolically unlocks the heart.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So Nathan walks in and instead of saluting, holds his arms up. And Todd's like, I'm here for this.
So he picks him up in the most awkward way that anyone's ever picked up a child. Just wrapping his arm around the kid's lower back and standing up. And then we see him looking out the window.
Yep.
And that's it. I guess they were planning to have a sequel, but this bombed in the theater. It blew up better than Todd blows up everything in the total end of this movie.
Still a better love story than Twilight.
Yeah. You know what is another bomb that I absolutely love? And it kind of reminds me of this? Waterworld.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love me a good 90s
Post-apocalyptic.
taciturn, low on lines.
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels with
Doesn't fit in with
Waterworld
other
here.
humans' characters. Yeah.
We haven't done Waterworld.
No,
for
we
the
haven't.
podcast
Because every
yet.
time I do, you're like, yeah, let's do Waterworld.
Is it going to be sci-fi, fantasy, or horror? Which one?
Could do fantasy.
All three.
Could be our next one because it is a fantasy.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Somebody who listens all the way to the end of this episode is going to get a Teaser Tuesday preview. That's an Instagram reference, which we have in Instagram.
Okay, my last note about the movie is
No, I'm happy for this.
this group is going to get to Trinity Moons,
Yeah.
and we're going to have this whole cohort of kids that have like the most badass
Paramilitary
like,
training?
6 or 7 uncles that raise them. And everyone's going to be like, oh, what's up with these like 6 old guys hanging out?
Yeah, it's going to be Sandra living with a bunch of really buff, really quiet dudes that just stare at you every time you come over to visit.
And everyone's going to be like, are they all like together? It's like, no, they have zero interest. Like,
Yeah.
It's not feasible for them.
Yeah, no.
Oh, no. The kids grow up and start dating.
Oof.
And then the girls bring a boyfriend back. And then instead of just one like grumpy old guy staring them down, it's like these 7 like 6.5 foot 250-pound bodybuilders walk in like, what are your intentions?
No.
Crystal.
Todd just
Oh no, no words.
No,
right?
no
Just
words.
Staring.
No. Todd just stares at Crystal because we're on Nathan's side, right? So if Crystal is our chosen name for the woman that Nathan is dating, Todd just stares at Crystal and then pulls out his face paint and does streaks across the
and then
face.
we cut to prom night, and inside of the dance room, tucked against the wall is Todd,
Todd,
with
yes.
the face paint.
Yeah, a disco ball,
And
light
the disco
flashes
ball
by.
light flashing over.
Yeah, you just see Todd
That's the sequel to this movie.
with 6 other dudes lined up beside
Yes.
him. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Riley opens a bakery. And if you come in, every time you try to return something, he just stands there and stares at you. So everybody goes there because they want him to, they like him being busy doing bakery stuff.
He's the most approachable.
Yeah. Because he's a really good baker. So everybody goes. But you can't talk to him about anything because he just stares at you. So you just have to get what you get. You can't even order. You just walk in and he hands you a bag of whatever
It's like,
it feels like.
Have you ever seen Soup Nazi from
No, I've never watched that
Seinfeld?
show.
Okay.
I know of Soup Nazi. Doesn't he just bring you soup?
He gives you your soup.
Yeah. You don't
That's
order it. Yeah.
And if you contest it, no more soup.
Yeah, it's like Soup Nazi, except without words.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the rest, one of them's a crossing guard at school.
And he just stares down the cars.
Yeah. Literally just leaves it open the entire time kids should be crossing. And nobody says anything because nobody wants to cross this guy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. This is good. This would have been a really good sequel. There's these people trying to integrate back into real life. But in a funny way, not in a, oh no, PTSD makes it hard to be around people way. I think this is our favorite kind of movie, which is it can have as much meaning as you want. Yeah. If you want it to just be Rambo, it's fine. If you want to read more into it, you can. You can kind of pick and choose what parts of this movie you want to focus on. And it's a different movie depending on what you focus on, which is what we specialize in. The so ambiguously done that it can be as good as you want it to be.
Okay, here's one interpretation. In like philosophical analysis, whatever, there's a difference between an icon and a symbol. Mm-hmm. An icon is a like 1-to-1 representation of something. Like the power icon.
Yeah.
Means you push
power
this,
on,
it turns
power
it on and off.
Gotcha.
But a symbol is a way at looking at something, and you can kind of dive into the symbolism as deep as you want.
Yeah.
And if it's portrayed like genuinely as a symbolic behavior, symbolic relationship, representation, whatever, there's a depth of interpretation, potential meaning in there. And so this movie is heavy in symbolism.
Yes.
But it's still entertaining if you don't dive into that symbolism.
Correct.
But the symbolism is there to dive into if you want to.
Correct. Yes.
But symbolism, you can't really force it.
No, this is, you have to
It has
watch
to kind
this
of
movie,
emerge organically.
Over and over. You have to think about it. You have to go back and watch it again. It's not hard to rewatch. I don't know why it had such a low score on. You know what? Because people have standards. I made air quotes.
Ugh, standards.
Right. I think there's this movie file thing that we get because we have so much cinephile. I'm not going to get movie file where we get into like, we've watched so many movies. We can rewatch movies so easily. We have access to so much media. We really start to feel like experts because we've got 10,000 hours worth of media viewing in. And so people have developed this framework. There's somebody I follow on Instagram and they have a very granular, it's like a 10-part rating system that they do, like writing, acting, and a bunch of other stuff too. And they always they go into this very deep way of really rating in a very granular fashion.
Probably very rigid.
But to me, okay, so I saw a good thing earlier today about philosophers in antiquity. and how today we think of our emotions and our actions as two separate things, or our beliefs, whatever, facts as two different things. And you have your feelings, everything in this heart-shaped space. You have your feelings, your emotions, your woo-woo attitude towards everything. And then you have your logic and your reason and your fundamental belief in facts and things over on the other side. But previously, we thought these two things were together in one space.
Yeah, that's a big part of ancient Greek philosophy.
Right. So
it was all together.
The logic and reason is the pit in the center of the peach. It is the thing in the middle of the emotion. So the way we view movies is our immediate emotional reaction. I loved that. All right, let's back that up and unpack it. Why did we love it? Instead of, I don't know how I feel about the writing. We don't look at it from a logic and reason way. We very much have our feelings about it, and then we drill down to the logic and reason of why.
And we have a conversation about it.
Right. And so I'm chiefly interested in being entertained. And so as long as I'm entertained, it's a good movie. And the rest is just fluff. Was this the best written movie in the entire world? No, they didn't give fucking Kurt Russell any dialogue. His dialogue was literally just like stares sadly, stares intently,
right, his screenplay instructions,
stares angrily, and that's it. But it's good. It's fine. We have two characters that don't need to exist. I don't care. They're fine. Was Gary Busey the best choice for that? No. No. Even the actor that played Mika, I'm not sure he's the best choice. But I don't care. I was entertained. It was fine. I thought Kurt Russell did a great job. Everybody does a great job. I'm here for this. And all the rest is just fluff. All the plot holes and the...
So the separation of like the scientific analysis and measurements and everything as separate from the subjective emotional experience is kind of like a big topic right now, and like the meaning crisis, because it's removed the subjective experience from everything that like Western culture considers valuable and important. But what's the value of a movie if it's subjectively enjoyable, but you don't let yourself enjoy it because from this objective set of metrics that you've compiled, it doesn't score high.
Right.
It's an enjoyable movie. It's an entertaining movie.
It could be the best written movie in the world with the best acting and the best screen direction and the best CG and the best everything. And if it's not entertaining, it's not entertaining. If I don't feel engaged, I'm not engaged. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once swept every single awards category that it is possible to sweep.
But it was a mediocre, enjoyable movie.
But we did not enjoy it. Doesn't mean it's a bad movie, but we didn't like it. If you had asked me separate from any other scale, if you had put me in a vacuum and told me to rate that, I would have given it a very low rating. But that's because I didn't enjoy it, and that's fine. Lots of people, I'm sure, didn't enjoy Soldier, obviously, because it has like a 15% rating. But when we get into the trap of, if I tell people I like this movie, they're going to think I'm stupid, that's when it becomes a problem. Yeah, but the writing is terrible. The acting wasn't great, blah, blah, blah. Well, I don't care. I like the movie or I don't like the movie. Let's just start with that. And I get to like things I like, and you get to like things you like. That's
right. And it's like reading a book, and it's like, okay, the writing is not good, but I really like the concept of this character.
Yeah.
I'm reading it because I want to see where this character goes.
Right.
right? Regardless of how well the author structures the sentences.
Right.
The author hit something here.
It cheapens the individual nature of experience.
Yeah.
When you create these metrics and you tell people there's a 1 to 10 scale and you have to give it a 1 to 10 rating. Well, no, you don't.
If you look at if anybody saw my Goodreads,
They're all good books, bro.
every book that I finish gets 5 stars. There's a couple that I didn't quite like. They still got 4 stars.
Yeah.
I don't know that I have actually rated any books less than 4 stars. There might be one 3-star book on my Goodreads out of like 400 some books.
Just that it's okay to be who you are and love what you love. That's the whole
Right.
point of this podcast.
I enjoyed the process of reading all these books.
Yeah, and that's fine. I was talking to somebody about iranoia the other day. We have this idea that we need to chase everything we do with a joke, with an irony, because
Right, you have to give yourself an escape route.
right, because if anybody actually knew what you cared about, they would use it to hurt you.
Yes. That's what iranoia is.
That's
it's
what
the
iranoia
fear of
is. And
people
I
using it against
think
you.
this is an outgrowth of comment culture. And I kind of performed an experiment for myself, which I've been updating the YouTube channel. And I left comments open on the last 6 or 7. And I immediately got just the most random, stupid comments. And I was like, you know what? This is why I leave comments closed. Because I don't care. I don't.
It isn't useful feedback.
Right. If it isn't a meaningful, constructive attempt to improve both of our experiences, I'm not interested. What are you looking up?
I was going to look up the videos.
So I think we get into this where we create these categories and this rating system because it separates personal opinion from the rating. And that way, if someone disagrees with you, they aren't disagreeing with you. They're disagreeing with your assessment of it. And so it's another form of iranoia. I'm creating 5-star reviews because that way no one's going to come at me about my personal statements about this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we here at the Strange and Beautiful Book Club think you should love what you love, whether that's ridiculous 1990s vampire cop television shows, Soldier with a Heart of Gold on a Trash Planet, whatever. We love what you love. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So while Matt's looking that up, I'll tell you guys about the Instagram. We have an Instagram. It's up over 190 followers now. I don't know how that happened. It just sort of happened. But I'm happy to have you all. That is at The Strange and Beautiful Book Club. You can find us on Instagram at The Strange and Beautiful Book Club. We have a Patreon as well. I encourage everybody to go over there and check it out. We're getting ready to do a whole bunch of new stuff. Lots of big surprises coming. That's a good place to keep up to date with everything. Plus, we're going to be doing some Patreon exclusive content. So that'd be a good way to go over and get that. Our lowest tier is just $1. So you can have access to the exclusive content for the high price of $1 a month. We also have a website, which is still broken, but not for long because I'm working on it. And we have a YouTube channel where I have been uploading everything. My goal is to get caught up with all the old episodes so that the new episodes will be going up as we write them and record them. We don't write shit. Does it sound like we don't sound scripted, do we? We're not. As we record them.
So remember.
Oh, did you find the thing you were looking for?
I didn't find any comments on any videos.
Oh, I'll show you.
Okay. So remember, sometimes the strangest things are the most beautiful too.
So be who you are and love what you love. Until next time, friends.
Bye.
Bye.